Welcome, everyone, to this solution session on NewSpace, Better Data, Effective Transformation. Before we start with our guests here and our panelists, I'd like to introduce Eva Gauss from BDI to give us a short introduction into the topic before I continue introducing the rest of the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhoda. A very good morning to all of you. I'm happy to welcome you on behalf of BDI's NewSpace initiative to this solution talk. My name is Eva Gauss. I'm Senior Manager on Sub-Saharan Africa at the Federation of German Industries. We meet here today at a critical time. We're facing ecological challenges that call for innovative global solutions. Sustainability is no longer just a goal, it is a necessity. New space technologies will play a key role in driving the changes we need. We're fortunate to live in a time when satellite data provides us with tools to tackle pressing global issues such as climate change, food security, and access to resources. These innovations are not limited to the industrialized world. Emerging markets are also benefiting from improved connectivity, real-time data, and the new possibilities offered by new space technologies. This is especially true for the African continent. I'm therefore delighted that we have our guests, or our partners from Zambia with us. They made the long journey from Lusaka to be here in Hamburg to share their views on new space in Africa with us. In the next 45 minutes, we will discuss how we can use new space technologies in areas such as agriculture and disaster relief to promote sustainable growth. Well, before I start, I would like to thank our co-hosts from the Global Perspective Initiative, our panelists, and obviously all of you for being here today. Now, I'm extremely happy to have Rhoda Berger here with us. She's the CEO of the Global Perspective Initiative, and she's going to be the moderator of today. Rhoda.
Thank you very much, Eva. And yes, I'm very happy to be here because we have a very long history of partnerships with BDI, and especially on the space topic, because at Global Perspectives Initiative, which is a dialogue platform working on the development of strong networks and relationships between Europe and the African continent, innovation and entrepreneurship and everything that creates jobs for the youth on the continent is is at the heart of our work. And we've been working with BDI in that regard a lot. And I think we had a great moment last year at the Space Congress in Berlin, where we also hosted a session on space in Africa together. And I'm very happy that we can continue the dialogue here together with you in Hamburg today. So I think we have 45 minutes here today, so not too much time and quite a lot to talk about, and a few panelists and also great entrepreneurs that will pitch their businesses here with us. So let's get right into it. And I'd like to introduce our first two keynotes. Teddy Soobramanien, very good. I'm very glad to see you again here today in Hamburg. You're the CEO of the Comesa Business Council, so that's the common market for Southern and East Africa, and also a very close partner of the Federation of German Industries, and working very hard on advancing innovation, new technologies on the African continent. So please come up here on stage, and we're looking forward to hear your keynote. You can take, this mic should be on.
Thank you. Thank you, Rhoda, for these kind words, and Eva for the introduction. Very happy to be here and to be sharing with you some of my perspectives on the new space and data. I want to start by sharing with you a story. Many of us here, we have our guilty pleasures. Some of us maybe a good meal with the friends. Some of you may have, going out, visit some very interesting places. So we all have our guilty pleasures. We, at the moment, we're Comesa Business Council. We are in Lusaka, Zambia. We are very happy to be there. It's a beautiful country. I welcome you to visit Zambia. I was just talking to some colleagues before joining this session. We have 2 hours of electricity over 3 days. Just imagine you reach home, you can't charge your computer, you can't charge your laptop, and you can't do anything. You don't have a fridge, you can't cook your food. So this is the story I want to tell you today. So 2 hours of electricity in Zambia over a space of 3 days, and the situation is not improving. Now, why is this happening? This is happening because Zambia gets most of its electricity from hydro, from the Kariba Dam. And because of the El Nino effect, the Kariba Dam is dry. So which means that Zambia cannot generate electricity for its economy, for its people. This is a big problem. So that's the story I want to leave with you today, that while we are talking about issues of sustainability, climate change, we are talking about it, but some people are actually living it, which makes a difference. Now, what is the link between the story I just told you and data and satellite technology, space technologies? If we have had the technology, satellite technology, space technology, probably, I say probably, we would have the data about the water level in the dam very early, and it would have helped the government, the state, plan ahead with regard to climatic changes, energy changes that is happening on the African continent. This could have avoided a situation many countries in Africa are facing today with regard to water shortages and other climate issues they are facing. So there is a very, very important link, critical link, I would say, between data that we get for predicting the weather, for predicting water level, also to help agricultural management. Now, with regard to the effective transformation, for example, about satellite technologies, space technologies, NewSpace, for me, a few months, a few years ago, that would have been a very abstract subject to talk about. But I can tell you, having worked with some colleagues from BDI and also some other colleagues on the African continent, it is not so remote to the problems Africa are currently facing. So it's not so abstract a subject. There's a direct link between satellite technologies, space technologies, and the reality that many African countries are facing. Now, the NewSpace in Africa is developing. It's not only something we are talking about. I'm very happy to meet one colleague who is actively involved in satellite technology in Zambia. Actually, we met today, but I'm happy to continue this conversation with you. But in Africa, 19,000 jobs created by satellite technologies. 15 countries already launched satellite. So it is a very dynamic industry in Africa. It is not abstract anymore. It is a reality that is happening. But again, to relate it to my story, I think it could be part of the solution to many of African problems. I spoke about energy solution, better data to manage energy, better data for water management, but also to identify agricultural productive land, how you can use satellite technologies, remote imagery. You can identify areas in Africa, in Comesa region, which I represent, so that we can improve our agricultural production, and this can be part of the solution to food security, something that is very, very important for many African countries. So yes, satellite technologies, NewSpace, initiatives can be part of the solution to many of our problems. Again, one other aspect which is important is that of connectivity. You know, in Europe, in the Western world, we are all very connected with the internet and so on. If we have 1 minute without connection, I think there's a serious problem for us. Yeah, we can't live with it. But just imagine in countries like Africa, where you have people living in remote areas, where they don't have access to the internet, for example. Now, I'm very happy to see that now people are starting to realize that, for example, using satellite technologies, we can have access to the internet in remote areas. A woman located in an isolated area in Kenya, producing a particular product. Having access to internet, they can produce the product, market the product, and have access to other market. So yes, satellite technologies can be part of the solution to many of our problems. So that's a reflection I want to share with you, that when we talk about NewSpace initiative, when we speak about satellite technologies, yes, it can be part of the solution to many of our problems, and it is no longer an abstract concept, and it is something that we have to work with and also sensitize more and more people on that. I'm very happy, Rhoda, that you and Eva from BDI, all the work that you are doing to sensitize people on new technologies, how this can be part of the solution to some of the problems that we are facing. At CBC, we have established new work groups where it's going to focus on technology with the support of BDI and the German government. We are very happy to move in that direction. So thanks again. Bravo for this initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for sharing the insights from Eastern and South Africa and the little story about the guilty pleasure. So we'll hear from the German governmental side, from you, Dr. Stefanie Harter, who's leading the Unit of Governance and Human Rights at GIZ and working a lot on data governance and I think also satellite data governance in that regard. So over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm not government, but I represent GIZ, and I'm very glad to be here because it's a topic that is very important, I can see, but then we are also faced with the question why an institution mandated for development cooperation deals with new space. Aren't there enough problems on Earth that have to be dealt with before? And then I would answer, that's exactly what we are trying to do. As you said, space technology, space data, connectivity are all there in order to promote the dynamic economic development in countries, our partner countries, if they're applied economically, strategically, and just. And this would be my first point as well, that in order to unleash this dynamic development, we will also have to discuss space law, we have to discuss how to deal with space debris, we have to discuss cross-border data transmission, and a lot of these questions are still not really discussed with properly. The second point I want to make is that if we are not careful now, we will also observe a digital divide that is growing again, because of course data are helpful for the lady in Zambia for her crop management, but imagine that there is a monopolist private provider who's collecting all these data, who is analyzing them and then betting in the financial markets on the prices of crops and so ever. So there are huge financial gains to be made out of that, which should probably also be discussed beforehand while the industry is still in its infancy and while there are still quite a lot of treaties that have to be negotiated. My third point is, as you said, connectivity is important, robustness is important, ubiquity is important. It can also assist states, ours as yours as well, to facilitate, to fulfill the tasks that a state is supposed to do, like defend its country, or also it can help in improving humanitarian aid in case of catastrophes. And the fourth point I want to make is that there is, obviously with every technology, there are always pluses and minuses. The malign use of surveillance technologies, of border control, has to be observed at least. It's, of course, it's absolutely appropriate to buy satellite constellations in order to for desertification, flood control, whatsoever. But at the same time, you also have to bear in mind that there might be a path dependency depending on by whom you're buying your equipment. You have logged-in effects, and this is also a point where see a role for the cooperation community to sensitize and to see to what extent a legal and administrative framework can actually be provided. And maybe a last point I want to make, because obviously as GIZ, we assist in establishing administrative, budgetary, whatsoever frameworks. And I know for investors, regulatory frameworks can always be also a bit of a problem. But at the same time, I suppose investors would rely on a clear framework for investing. To whom do you give the contract for state procurement when you're building a ground control system, for example? And to ensure that poorer countries have access and just access to the data provided by satellites by ensuring that they're well-skilled in negotiating international treaties, and also to allow civil society organizations in there to monitor that all these treaties are finally actually also be fulfilled. So that would be my plea for today, and I hope we'll get there, and I'm hoping for multi-stakeholder initiatives in order to solve all these matters. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So to make this maybe a bit abstract topic more tangible, we'll hear from 3 great entrepreneurs here today that are all heavily working on making data more effective for transformation. And we'll hear first from you, Julia. I think you'll introduce yourself, so I'll leave that to you. And we'll open the discussion up to the audience, so listen carefully and keep your questions in mind. Over to you, Julia.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So my name is Julia Gottfriedsen, and I lead data science and AI at Aurora Tech. Aurora Tech is a company from Munich, and we build satellites. And for me, I work in my dream job, actually, because I can use my background in environmental science. I'm a geophysicist by training, so I really care about the nature and environment with space data to protect our biodiversity and to protect human life. My first slide would have supposed to be a video flying across Greece with a very recent wildfire that destroyed large parts of the nature surrounding Athens. This happened in Europe, and this happened this summer. I was caught twice or affected by wildfires personally. Once, whilst I was hiking in Cape Town, close to Cape Town, I was up on a hill with friends and a wildfire creeped up. And I tell you, I was never such afraid for my life ever. And the destruction it left was crazy. Like you see here, the soil is burned. Some ecosystems are adapted to wildfires, but others will not recover in 10 years, and even more. And the second time I was affected by wildfires personally was when I was working in Berkeley, in California, and we ran large experiments on a supercomputer, and then the power was shut off. It was shut off without warning. We lost all our experiment data. And this is because utilities in the US are facing so much liability claims that they shut off the grid as a preventative measure. That was not a direct effect, but was also not a nice effect. And I want to tell you more about the wildfire we just saw in Greece. So we can detect this wildfire when it's still the size of a tree, like a regular tree burning. And we know from our satellites, over 30 satellites we integrate right now into our system, we can monitor the globe all the time. And then we can detect the fire when it's still that small. So this was our first detection. There it doesn't look like a large fire yet. It's just a small tree burning. What do you do with that information? And that's an important claim I want to make, because just submitting this information to governments, like the monitoring and the status quo, is not enough. We have to combine it with analytics and intelligence, like with the environmental data we get in as well, like weather data, vegetation data. In a product development, we very much work with the people on the ground that know the nature around them, and they share fuel data with us, for example. And this is work of my team, and I'm really, really proud on that work, actually, where we are able to forecast the fire progression behavior for the next 24 hours. And we do not only share the status quo with the governments there, but also the progression to inform where they deploy resources. talking about resources. What is the action that's then taken if we share how large the fire is now and where the fire will most likely spread? Just to give you an idea on the money spent, on the human lives at risk there, with this fire in Greece that happened this summer, there were over 702 firefighters working there, almost 200 vehicles, and people risking their lives to manage that fire. And I'm super proud that our information was used to also inform where the resources were deployed, because if you put your resources at the wrong place, you might miss an important time window to control those mega fires. Now, you heard about us already. So we're Eurotech. We got founded in Munich. We're a spin-off of the Technical University in Munich. And we also, in our beginning, leveraged grant funding, actually. We work a lot with the European Space Agency, now also with NASA. That's also where I'm coming from. I was there the past 2 weeks. And our clients are all over the globe. So we have most of our clients in South Americas, North Americas, Africas, Australia, where wildfires are actually happening. And we're now over 120 employees on 4 continents and a really international company. And I also enjoy working with people from different cultures every day, because the fire regime in different biospheres is always different. And I really enjoy learning more about those. I want to share another use case with you, because now you know that we can detect extreme heat in the form of wildfires, but we can also get the whole heat signature of the globe. For example, if one of our satellites passes over Germany, we can get one heat scan, so the whole temperature of Germany's land surface. And this is super critical data for other applications. I know Max will talk later more about irrigation, that's one. But we are collecting this data as well. And this is a view of a city that fits our swath, which is Los Angeles. And here you can see Los Angeles at daytime. So how hot this certain parts of Los Angeles are. So similar to wildfire, we can then detect which parts of cities capture heat and which parts stay cold, which is very relevant for urban heat island. Probably you remember, if you've been to any major city in Europe this summer, I'm sure you had the same experience than me, like just running into like a heat wall, basically, when leaving the door. So this is how Los Angeles behaves at night. And then you can see like small little warm spots where we see that those parts of the city do not cool well. And this has indications for the health of the people that live in the city, and it can also inform urban planning. There are other use cases related to irrigation that Max will talk about, but this is one thing that temperature data can also be used for. You can see. Yes, and what's our plan? So right now we have 2 satellites in orbit ourselves. We integrate 28 more. We are launching our next plane early spring, and then we're planning to have a whole constellation of over 80 satellites surrounding Earth. And why are we doing that? Because there's no data in the time window available yet. So we're filling a data gap, but we're also leveraging other sensors wherever they are existing. And yes, I can only say I'm really proud to work for a company and having a team working on protecting the biosphere and human lives every day and leveraging data science and AI actually for social good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we'll come to Max first before we open the floor. Thank you very much. So definitely data for good. So Max, over to you for the second pitch. And irrigation, we heard.
Amazing. Yeah, no, it's not going to be about irrigation, but thanks. So, hey, I'm Max. I'm also a physicist. Really sorry, we're the socially skilled people here. But apparently today we're all on stage. I'm one of the founders of another company which is working in a similar sector by the name of ConstellR, but it's not going to be about the company, right? It's going to be about why it is important to use the data. And since I'm aware that we're in Hamburg today and irrigation is not a topic for Hamburg, right? So I'm going to rather focus on the topic you already brought, Julia, which is urban heat islands, right? Because urban landscapes are landscapes we know the geometry, we know the size, we have a feeling about, hey, this is the size of a building, this is the size of a street, this is the size of a park, and this is a very good illustration of what's going to change in the next couple of years when new services will come online. Purpose of ConstellR is very simply speaking, to help support mitigating climate change by optimizing resource use, and particular with a focus on food security. So why food security? Because food security rests basically on 3 pillars. The first pillar is the water cycle. So water determines where we can grow food, and water determines how much water is lost, temperature determines how much water is lost to the atmosphere, how much plants are stressed, it determines how much we need to irrigate, and so on. The second pillar of food security is energy. Only if we have the energy and we're in the right window of energies, of temperatures, we can actually grow food. Right? If we are at too low temperatures, or that's more the problem of too high temperatures, we are not able to grow temperature properly anymore. And the last one is the carbon cycle. Whenever we grow anything, we're in the carbon cycle, so we're sequestering CO2 from the atmosphere into biomass above and below the ground. And all these things are really nice and important. However, if we look at the global landscape and awareness, having the awareness that we're living in a city, what does it actually mean if we have a 1.5 or 2 degree warming globally on average for a city? It means that very likely in a city we have an increase of temperature between 5 and 15 degrees. And current data is simply not fit for purpose. And to demonstrate this, look at this slide. So on the left-hand side, it's very clear the city of Toulouse. Everybody sees that, right? Yes, perfect. Okay, I knew you all, so I wasn't really asking a question. I knew you knew it. So this is Sentinel-3 image. Sentinel-3 image is a false color image in this case, which means here we have what we would see with our human eyes in the visual spectrum. And here we have blue for cooler areas and red for hot areas. This is the best thing what the European Space Agency can do today. It's amazing satellites. It's super useful for climate work. It's not ideally suited for example, detection of urban heat islands. Our American friends have other systems which are not coming by that regularly, so probably have like 1 to 2 passes a month. Again, very clearly Toulouse. But you can now see, okay, there are structures like rivers, and you could potentially even see the city center somewhere. And on the right-hand side, that's what we're offering. So down to the single building level, single streets, and we can start answering questions like, what's the cooling power of a park? Hey, you changed the roofing color of your house. How is this affecting the neighborhood in terms of temperature? All these things suddenly become visible. And we've done this a few times. And here, for example, you can apply this to roads and linear infrastructure, right? You can look at which are the roads which are degrading the fastest. What is the effect? And I'm not trying to bash Deutsche Bahn, but the point is that Deutsche Bahn has the tendency to be late, right? And one of the reasons is that you cannot properly measure the temperature of the railroads. Because the railroads, obviously, they change their behavior, they bend if they get warmer or cooler, and depending on what temperature regime you have, you then can go either faster or slower. So you always have to be very conservative if your data is not very good. So also another use case, if suddenly you have high-resolution data, you can support this. And then obviously, can't do it without, right? So if we look at crop stress, so the vegetative health of crops and irrigation, also a super useful data set, right? So the single message I like to leave you with is the following. And in order to support food security, we need to master 3 cycles: water cycle, energy cycle, and carbon cycle. And the only scalable technology we have out there is actually satellites, because we cannot afford to bring a weather station every single field on the world. We cannot afford to bring a weather station every single building into the world to support this process. So what we need is actionable data from space. And I'm super happy that colleagues like Julia and the other companies out there are actually starting to provide this data. And I think it's going to be a game changer, because what we're effectively doing is we're changing from a pure visual regime, from pure looking at colors on the globe and then trying to guess, oh, is this the good brown? Is this not a good brown? Do we maybe need to irrigate? To a early warning system, be it for wildfires, be it for irrigation, early detection of stress, being able to mitigate things before they happen, right? So becoming in the end companies which support to make the planet transparent, right? And the nice thing is this data And these applications are so scalable, and they're so cost-effective. And this is actually a promise also to you, Teddy. They are so cost-effective that we'll make sure that they will also arrive at the right places in Africa. But obviously, we need your help. We need the help of GIS, right? We need the help of local actors. We need the help of, GIZ, sorry, yes, I know. Yes, we need the help of all these people on the ground who have the knowledge to make things happen. But it's important. And last message from my end, and I think here in the audience probably not too many people will quit their job afterwards, but if you have a job today which is not helping sustainable development, consider quitting that job.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Max. So we've heard from two great entrepreneurs from Germany, but there's also a lot going on the African continent and the space. So I'm very much looking forward to hear from you, Ahmed, and from Zambia. Tell us a bit about the developments in Southern Africa.
Is it morning still, or it's...
We don't know.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ahmad, and I help people discover their superpowers. I'm a mindset and business coach, and originally a software engineer. And I'm the CEO of Ignitos Space, which is Zambia's newest space company. At Ignitos Space, we are leveraging advanced satellite Earth observation technology to address key sustainability challenges in Zambia, particularly within agriculture, climate change and disaster mitigation, and land management. Data is the new oil, and everyone needs it, from precision farming all the way to decision making. And a few years ago, I was faced with a lack of data in Zambia, lack of testing facilities, lack of experts, and I had to be creative. So I looked to the sky. Ignitos Space is the winner of Africa's Best Space Innovation Company. We also won at VivaTech, at COP27, signed MOU with the government, and got invited to NASA. We are a strong team from local and international professionals, gurus in space, agriculture, tech, and business. Now let me tell you why Ignitos, by telling you about a farmer from Zambia named Peter. Peter has been suffering from low yields for the past 5 years. His problem, like the other 4 million farmers in Zambia and the 400 million farmers across Africa, is his inability to access essential data about his fields. So Peter heard about satellite technology from Joe, a friend of his, who hired a team of experts to solve his problem, including a satellite tech expert, a soil expert, and an agronomist, giving Joe constant updates about his crop and his soil composition. But Peter, like most rural farmers, cannot afford the experts, and he is not even tech savvy, doesn't even own a smartphone. And this is one of the biggest problems that we have. All the beautiful stuff that both of you put on the screen is gibberish for a lot of people who actually need the data. And this is why this is what we're doing. So, in Zambia, we are a resource-rich country with millions of hectares of arable land and beautiful weather. Yet, our yields seem to fall behind compared to other countries, making us lose 70% of potential revenue, translating to millions of dollars lost. Africa as a whole is a strategic and economic partner and has the capability to be the food basket of the world, with lots of land and resources. And only space technologies have the ability to tackle big-scale lack of data and provide solutions. So while we seem not to get it right down here on Earth, we looked up there to the sky. Ignitos Space is developing Ignite AI, which is Peter's new team of experts. Ignite AI is an artificial intelligence platform that aggregates data from hundreds of satellites, layer them together, analyze the data using proprietary research, then give Peter recommendations with a click of a button. All he needs to do is to sign up to his platform using the AI. This platform will triangulate him and guide him what to plant, where, and when, and monitor his farming season. But remember, Peter doesn't even have a smartphone. And this is why Ignite AI works on any platform, including phones without internet through USSD, to provide the same life-changing magic that the web platform provides. Space is about collaboration and not competition. Most remote sensing companies provide complex data that needs a team of experts to decipher. New remote sensing companies are building exciting dashboards for data visualization. But Renato is ahead of competition by providing actionable insights based on research on the ground and internally developed AI, all while providing data via USSD, as 80% of African farmers don't have access to smartphones. All that starts from $10 a month, paid not by the farmers themselves, but through cooperatives and various farming funds. We also have project-based revenue streams with public and private institutions and NGOs like GIZ. Is that me? Okay. Like GIZ, WWF, and more. We are looking to implement and develop sustainable solutions and to provide tech all the way down to the farmer, so everyone can eat, everyone can grow, everyone can unite, and we evolve as a race into our next adventure into space. The sky is not the limit. We are Renato, and we will save life on Earth. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Feel free to stay on stage, and I'll ask the others, including both of you, to come onto the stage as well. Thank you very much. So I'd like to open the discussion for the last 6 minutes that we have. So over to you. Yes, Mr. Thank you. We have a mic, but yeah.
For Julia, you talk about. I can be loud, but I can't even. You're fine. Okay. A question for Julia. You talked about your satellites. Are you de facto owners of certain satellites, or are you accessing data from third-party owned satellites?
Great question. So we're doing both at the moment. So we're accessing all publicly available satellites, but we're also building our own sensing technology and satellite buses. And the 2 satellites I mentioned that are in orbit are ours. And we're also doing everything like the ground segment, data processing, which is great because I can always talk to the hardware people when I have problems in the data. To be honest, like sometimes NASA are hard to reach when you work with their satellites. So yes, we're building our own to fill a data gap we're currently seeing with the existing satellites. But great question.
Thank you. Any more questions from the audience, or also if you have questions to each other, feel free. Yes.
Hi, I'm Stefan from GIZ, and I supported in the past years cities in the Balkans on urban development and seeing now this data. Now, asking on behalf of those cities that don't have that much money, how much do your services cost? And how could you support them, or how could we work together to get this data for their urban planning? Because it's
we're very pragmatic. Yeah. We'll make it work. Okay?
Okay, so we exchanged contact details, and thanks.
But that's actually a good question. How can we work together, right? We have a representative from Zambia. We have Teddy, who can speak for different organizations, companies in the eastern and southern region. And then we have some German companies having a lot of data also from the African continent. And then we have GIZ, who's regulating the field. So I do see a lot of potential for collaboration here.
Maybe one little thing here. I mean, we're all recording basically the same business model as Julia was. So we also own satellites and so on. But the point is that there's most of the big shacks are in North America, actually there's some in India and so on. So they're not equally distributed over the globe, right? We have a couple of projects in Africa, we have a couple of projects outside of Europe and so on, which are not in North America. But the whole point is that there's a lot of data. There's a lot of data available in a lot of areas which is currently underutilized. So there's this data, and it just sits with us, right? So if there's anybody here who'd like to approach me afterwards, if you're working in a region, be it in Africa, be it in Australia, be it in some parts of Southeast Asia, be in parts of South America, just come to me, let's have a chat. I actually need to leave to the airport, so have a brief chat. Yes, but I can tell you we're going to make that work.
But maybe, Teddy, you can jump into this.
Yes, no, definitely, Rhoda. I think the key question is collaboration. And for example, as CBC, we are very happy to collaborate with the Federation of German Industries. We set up a work group where we're going to discuss technologies, including satellite technologies, data, and so on. So we are very happy to collaborate with all stakeholders. But also, you know, we represent the business community and we mean business. And one concrete way, maybe going out of this room, that we can take with us and work on it, you know, there is a new EU regulation on deforestation. Some of you may be aware. So that's a legislation that has been enacted by Brussels and is going to impact many countries in Africa and across the world. Now, my question is, how do you monitor deforestation in these countries? Yeah? And this is linked to the cost of access to the data. And I think the European Union, with all their goodwill to save the planet, that's a concrete action they can take. Help these countries access this data on deforestation so that they can meet the requirement for market access when they export to European Union countries. And this is something that can build a great partnership between Africa and the European Union.
Okay, and to answer that question, so I've worked with farmers myself, and farmers in Zambia, sometimes their average income per month is $100. So there's big farms that need satellite data that cost about $5,000 per month. So the idea, what we did, is to get satellite data about a big chunk of land and then cut it down into smaller chunks, and each farmer will get, with $10 per month, can get access data about his own field. That's the other way. A lot of companies are thinking about who are our biggest people who can buy data. GIZ can buy data, the government can buy data, but it's the farmers on the ground who needs that data and cannot afford it. So by collaborating with different people, getting data, and instead of them giving us just one chunk of land, they give us 5,000 hectares that can be spread in different places, and then each one of them will cost separately. Thanks.
Maybe just a remark, and that's a bit of a criticism to the Earth observation community at the moment, of which we are obviously part of, right? We are stuck in the 90s with our business model. It's like, hey, you get an image and I get money for that. That's like buying albums, music albums in the 90s, right? So, and then obviously iTunes comes along and you then only pick the song you actually like and don't have to buy or listen to all the rest of the album. And so at some point there was Napster, but let's not talk about Napster. And then at some point there's Spotify, right? So, and the idea is that will become the Spotify, right? So forget about buying images. That's not the point anymore. It's going to be a streaming service, and it's going to be affordable. And if you look at, for example, what's the lowest price of planet data? It's like $2.50 a square kilometer or something, right? You should know it. Yeah, depends a little bit like this, okay? What is the average? There was a study from USDA. What's the average economic value of a square kilometer over 20 years averaged? I think was the Landsat service. It was 1.5 cents. So there's a factor of 2 orders of magnitude between the economic value, averaged obviously, if you target certain regions, then the economic value is higher, and the actual cost of the satellite imagery. And that's the gap we need to overcome. So for large-scale adoption, we need to drop prices by a factor of 100. We know, we have an idea how to do this, but I can make the promise right now, it's going to work. And sooner or later, I think sooner than later, right? We should also have a talk, right?
So thank you.
But Earth observation needs to change.
We're really running a bit out of time, so I'll take a last question over there before I hand over to you, Eva, for some last words.
Hi, it's for Julia and Max. So I want to know, like you mentioned about your satellite, it can go by building also. You show it, it's really high definition and you can track all of those things. How you deal with I'll say data security and the I will say the security aspect about that, and also your satellites definitely going through different other countries and all. How we are dealing with different countries, data regulation and all. How we're dealing with that. So that is also, I know it's. I mean, data is new fuel. I can understand, but how you are dealing with those kind of issues.
It's a really good question. I'm sorry we're over time, so I'll try to keep it really brief. First of all, we're not at a level where we're actually violating any data laws, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is we're always acting as a data provider, right? We're not doing the analysis. We're not mixing this with demographic data or anything like this. Right now, simply for bandwidth reasons, we're a small company. We're about the size as Eurotech too. We simply don't have the bandwidth to do more, right? So we are, in this case, a data provider. We will build an analytics solution, but we need people like you for that, right, to help us on this end. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is that, yes, we're also recording data, let's say, over North Korea or over parts of Russia or others which might or might not like it.
But they do the same.
Exactly, but they do the same, and we don't care either, right?
Yeah, Julia, do you want to add something?
And I get that question a lot, the security thing, like, can't you see me drinking in my backyard if you're using satellite and so on? That's military-grade type of satellite that needs like 1 million type of documents for you to be able to access. So we do not have access to that. We have access to currently, I think, 3 meter to 1 meter. I think the least, like 1 pixel is 1 meter. So you cannot identify neither a car, neither a person. We look at bigger stuff. Yeah.
Sorry, if I may add. So my answer is a little bit different since we're not selling the raw data anymore. So there you wouldn't, I agree with Max, you wouldn't see your car or yourself. But if you go to analytics and insights, and especially predictions, you are in liability territory, especially when you predict risk, for example. And one thing I'm personally facing right now is the AI Act, because we use AI already in our products. So yes, it's a topic, especially if you dive deeper into analytics and intelligence for your customer groups.
Thank you very much. I think we need to come to an end, unfortunately. The time is ticking. But you all know who to speak to. You have the names over there, the faces here, so feel free to address all of them after the session. It was a great pleasure to having this discussion. I think we've learned a lot and made the topic a bit more tangible, heard about guilty pleasures, about the power, the superpowers, the power of data, and data as the new oil. And if you all want to quit your jobs, I think the data field is the one you need to work in.
At the same time, okay?
So thank you very much, and thank you, Eva, for the opportunity. So last words for you.
Well, I think
Do you have a mic? Yeah.
you said everything, Rhoda. It just leaves me to thank you for the great moderation and wishing you a great rest of the conference.
Thank you very much.